Hello, PTTU family. We've got Savannah here and Adam. Today, we're going to be going over how to master your doors list. First things first, why is a doors list called a doors list? I think every door is like a doorway to an opportunity. Also, typically, when you're going marketing yourself, you're walking into doors of offices, doors to ALFs, ILFs, wherever, whatever avenue you tend to receive your patients from, I think every doorway is an opportunity. So I think of it like that's your doorway to all of the opportunities that you have. And so you want it all organized in one place. Adam has up on our screen recording here an example of your doors list, which can be done either in a Google Drive, in an Excel sheet, whatever you're the most comfortable with as far as tracking purposes are concerned. So your doors list essentially is your roadmap to having a concise, clear, and organized way to market to your offices or to anyone that you typically are connecting with on a regular basis. Even for your Part A to Part B therapists, I would highly encourage you to have a doors list because it's just a way to remember in a line item type fashion who you need to be consistently reaching out to on a regular basis to make sure that you're maximizing your referral potential and your opportunity to take care of people. So, in your doors list, you're going to have several columns in which each column is helping you keep all of your information organized. The first column I like to have is a date updated column. The reason we have a date updated column is because that's going to help you just remember, one, if there's been an update with the practice, whether it's a new doctor just joined or you met someone new or just the date that you're updating information that you're keeping track of. Another thing that I like to have a date updated column for is your last visit date. So you can use that as a version for your last visit or for your last time that you're updating information on your log. Typically, your last visit should never be over a month. So if you notice that your last visit is starting to go on 3 to 4 weeks, it's also just another flag for you to make sure that you're visiting your offices as regularly as you need to be. In the column next to that date of update per se, you're going to have your practice name. So your practice name, which again for A to B could just be an agency name. For the purpose of today, we're going to talk about physician offices. That practice name is going to be the name of that business. So for example, LA Medical Associates is a big practice here in the South Florida East Coast region. So I'm going to use them as an example. The practice name is going to be under that column. It's not the physician's name unless the physician's name is also the practice name. So that brings us to the next column, column C, which is where you're going to have your physicians listed. Here, I like to have each physician listed as a separate line item. So you'll have, for example, Dr. Smith on line 4, and then in the next line or row, I should say, it would still be under LA Medical Associates, but you're going to list the rest of your physicians there. So we can say Dr. Adam and so on and so forth. So it's just nice to have everything listed in one place. And then also you just know how many physicians or practitioners are there, because that's going to help you determine what's the maximum amount of opportunity you have from each person in that office, and how diverse the patient panel could potentially be based off of how many people are seeing patients there. In the following column, we're going to have an address portion listed. The reason that the address is there is simply to keep you very consolidated in the area codes that you're marketing in. And also just so as you route your offices out, you're being as efficient as possible in the order in which you're seeing them. Because sometimes you're just thinking, oh, well, it's the same area, but you might be going back and forth between offices. And instead, if you have it all organized by the address of the clinic, it's going to make it a lot easier just to navigate and be the most efficient with your time. In the column after address, I typically like to have a suite or a building portion. I just have that separate so that way it's a little bit easier to see versus having it farther down on the line. So after that suite or building number, your next column is going to be your city. So let's just say we're going to have the city, which could be, wherever you're treating patients from is fine. After the city, you're going to have a zip code column. So of course, same thing as zip code goes. And this just helps you too. You're going to see like where the bulk of your patients and where the bulk of your practices you tend to go to are. And maybe that will also help you understand maybe where your, not only your target audience is, but where the offices that are sending you the most patients are coming from. Which also, as you know, the Medicare population is going to be different, of course, in different area codes. And so it's going to be nice to have that information listed there. So you're always up to speed with, how dense it is as far as the population is concerned. After the zip code column, I have a column that will be listed as specialty. You want to track your specialties because then that helps you know, again, like who's in your wheelhouse and who's in your corner. Most of our practices, as we talk about, are either going to be your internal medicine doctors, your orthopedic physicians, maybe pain management, maybe podiatry, of course, geriatrics, anything in that internal medicine range, and a couple outlier specialties. In the column next to that, you're going to have your contact and your notes section. So typically here, I'm going to have listed, let's say, for example, office manager. So I'd have office manager and then a colon, Pamela. Pamela is the office manager here. She's going to be helping me with my patients. If there's more than one person that is managing things in the office, I will write each person within that contact section in notes. Notes can also just be descriptive features of that person. So that way you remember them the next time you see them. Like Pamela always wears the glasses with the purple rim. So then every time you see her, you know, okay, that's Pamela, because after you're visiting a lot of places, it can be challenging to always remember the names of every single person you talk to. So it's nice to have those little features there that will help you remember who's who. And after that, after the contact and notes sections, those are just general notes. But the line item after that I like to have is your last visit note. So what you achieved in that visit, what was your meaningful point of impact, whether I dropped a rack card and I spoke to Pamela. Pamela had a really good reception in this visit. She told me they typically go to lunch around 12. I might be able to meet the doctor before he goes to lunch at around 11:55. So these are more specific notes. So that way, every time you go in for that following visit, you're going to know exactly what transpired prior to that. Luckily, you're already going to have that last visit date. So you're aware of what that note entails from the last visit. And then also, I like to keep those notes stacked. So leave it there and then just make an indentation and continue to follow along your journey, so to speak, because maybe after 3 to 4 visits, you get a little bit caught up in, oh, I don't remember, like, did I leave a ton of rack cards? Did I just leave one rack card in my first visit? And so knowing exactly what you did in each visit is going to be really powerful in how you're staggering your efforts in order to market. So overall, this is just to help you track your outreach, become more efficient and successful in how you're doing it, because I think the saying goes, it's not about what you're doing, but it's in the way you're doing it. So in the way that you're being efficient and organized, you're going to have a higher likelihood of being more consistent in your visits and more consistent in getting patients. After those 2 line items, missed 2 things, sorry. It's going to be a phone and a fax column. So I like to have the phone and the fax because sometimes our office is going to reach out to you and say, hey, we were trying to reach out to this office and notice that the number online isn't working. And so maybe you grab the business card from the office, which, by the way, always grab the business card from the office because there might be an email or a point of contact on there that you weren't aware of. So always have those 2 items listed because it can just be another point of connection for you there. So phone and fax, perfect. So you've got your doors list set up. Typically, you're going to have anywhere from 10 to 12 doctors or offices or practices or home care agencies. Home care agencies probably closer to that 3 to 4 range, but 10 to 12 offices that you're going to be marketing to, and start to cycle through those offices and those visits. And you're going to maximize all of those connections before you end up moving to new connections or removing connections from your list that you no longer think are viable. So that's essentially how you create your doors list and then update your doors list after that initial contact, initial visit. What I want to talk about next is when to add in new offices to your doors list. So the most important thing is just to be consistent with the places you're going at first. I know it's going to feel slightly redundant and going back somewhere week over week, but I can promise you this: the offices have so many people visiting them. It's going to be really challenging for them to remember all of the pieces of information you threw them with the first visit. So layering that information as you go throughout is going to be very important. You don't want to add new offices for at least 2 to 3 months. Like, you're going to work this list over and over again for at least 2 to 3 months. So at that 90-day mark, that's when you can say confidently, I think I'm going to get a patient, but maybe just for some reason I haven't gotten one yet. Or two, I haven't gotten a good reception. I haven't been able to move past the person at the desk. I haven't been able to meet the doctor. I feel like I'm at a standstill, or they have relationships with other places. And maybe for now, it's going to be something that I move to the back burner. So continue to visit those offices. I would venture to say you want to give each office at least 8 visits before you can make an honest judgment call on whether or not you have the opportunity to get a patient. Also, things are constantly in flux and changing. So just because you didn't necessarily gain the opportunity to see a patient now doesn't mean that it can't happen in the future. And if you feel like there was just one person or one thing that was a roadblock, maybe you revisit it in 2 to 3 months and go back in and say, hey, how's it going? And just kind of refresh on the opportunity and see if there's been any changes. Because as we know in medicine, everything is always in flux. So you want to be present and persistent. Your 2 most important words, present and persistent. So those 8 to 10 visits, you're going to have a really good idea of whether or not you have a genuine opportunity to see patients from them. And if you really don't feel like you're getting anywhere at that point, you're going to remove that office from your notes, and then at least maybe just make a couple line items and shoot it down towards the bottom. So you still remember them. They're still on your radar, but they're not necessarily going to be a high referring office or someone that you feel like you're getting consistent patients from. So that would be kind of when to drop an office, so to speak, when to add offices in. You're not going to add any new offices until you're dropping other offices. So again, you always want to stay within that 10 to 15 range. I would never have more than 20 offices, because at that point you're just a little bit too far spread, and you want to be really dialed in on your relationships and where you're focused on. And if you're putting in a couple of hours of marketing a week, it's going to be not only easy, but it's going to feel good to have confident and good relationships in 10 to 15 offices versus spreading yourself too thin and going to too many places where you're not really able to efficiently manage your relationships with those offices. So keep it very consolidated. And if you're starting to pull some off and you notice some new ones that might be good opportunities for you, then add them in. I would say the only shortcut to this equation would be if you have an office that refers you a patient that you weren't marketing, or maybe it was a patient that had heard about you from Facebook or any type of other marketing adventure that you've sought after. In that case, that doctor is definitely going to take the driver's seat. You're going to want to visit them more frequently and quicker than you would a brand new office, because that's considered a warm lead. So visit your warm leads 100%. But if you don't have any warm lead or any patient that's coming to you from an office that you haven't visited yet, keep waiting, keep plugging away, and shoot for the stars. And hopefully you get your first patient from one of those offices.
I love it. This is Adam here. I'm going to chime in for a quick second. When it comes to tracking and why this Excel sheet is so important, like Savannah hopped on at the start and was talking and going through it. If you don't track it, you are going to forget. It is impossible to juggle all your patients, all your marketing efforts, keep track of who's who. I can barely keep track of all my patients on a week-to-week basis sometimes. And then you add in, your marketing efforts that you have to do to start driving referrals for yourself, and things can get convoluted, and names can be forgotten, and proper follow-ups with providers can be forgotten. The worst thing that can happen is you get so busy with your patients because the providers may be sending patients your way that you forget to even stop in and give them an update on how they're doing.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario, you can give them a phone call, and this is where you have all your stuff here. So maybe you can even talk with, gave the clinic a call at this date, this time, gave them an update on the referral that they sent over and how they're doing. This tracking method is what's going to keep you successful to manage these, leads, these doors that you're trying to get in. Once you have the patients, it's easy because manage on the back end and get those patients back to you. But it's always the front end, the sales and marketing and the outreach that need to be tracked strategically, all in front of you, so you don't miss anything and that you can stay on top of it. That's how the winners get the patients, because they are doing the things, they are tracking it, and they are not leaving it to luck. If you track it, you're going to be consistent, you're going to follow up, and you're going to make sure that you're hitting these people, at that cadence that Savannah talks about.
Yeah, you just made me think of something else, which I love all the points you just made. The cadence is really, really important. But also, it just reminds you how far you've come, because sometimes you forget. Maybe you just started a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, and you're thinking, "Wow, I really haven't gotten there yet, or I haven't gotten to where I want to be." And this, seeing your track record of your consistency, is going to remind you, especially because you can't be this consistent and not win. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing way too much and putting way too much effort in to not have something good come out of it. So I like it just as a check back in, like, you're doing great. Everything you're doing is good. And eventually something's going to click, and then you're going to look back at this list and say, thank goodness, I hit all these places, because eventually one's going to move for you. Stay consistent, don't give up, and this is just your way to remind yourself that you've got a lot of good things coming your way, and being consistent in those offices is going to create that synergy for you.
100%. 100%. Please take this, do it yourself, get your own spreadsheet. If you got a Gmail, it's really awesome because they give you a Google Sheets tab on there. Copy in what we put day to day here and make all the tabs, and then you got it. It's like once you make it, you have it forever. So it's just take the
Yeah.
first step, slow this video down, you can follow through it, make your own list here, then you start tracking. This is what it takes to win at the end of the day, and we don't like to sugarcoat the effort that it does require to stay on top of things and to be in business for yourself. But this is what it takes, and you have to start with getting it all on paper so you can all see it.
Thank you.